And Brittney, I do appreciate you taking the time to give us this presentation. I know you've been coordinating with Jamie to set this up. Maybe we can still at least do intros so you know who you're speaking to as part of the presentation. My name is Chris Sullivan. I'm the Executive Director with the Southwest Conservation District. We're one of the member organizations of the Norwalk River Watershed Initiative. And I'll go to Jamie next.
I am Jamie. I'm the watershed coordinator for the Norwalk River Watershed Initiative. I will go to Kathleen.
Awesome. Thank you, Jamie. Kathleen, you're in the next square on my list.
Okay. Hi there, everyone. Kathleen Holland, Director in the Wetlands for the town of New Canaan and a member of the Norwalk River Watershed Association Initiative. I get confused. Thank you.
It's only one letter difference. Next on my squares is Nikki.
Hi, I'm Nikki Spiller. I am the Director of Harbor Watch.
Thanks, Nikki. Brittney, I'm going to assume that you know who John is.
I do, yes.
John, do you want to introduce yourself for the folks that don't work with you at USGS?
Sure. My name is John Morrison. I'm the branch chief of the Applied Hydrology branch of the New England Water Science Center, and I'm also the USGS liaison to the Long Island Sound Study.
Great. Thank you, John. And Jeff, you're the last square on my screen.
Hey, all. Sorry, I'm cooking dinner. Jeff Yates, I'm the National Director of Volunteer Operations for Trout Unlimited, but I'm also the Conservation Chair for the Miamis chapter, which covers the Norwalk River Watershed. And I've been coming to these Watershed Initiative meetings since I was 14.
Wow.
95, 96, I guess, or 15.
You're a grizzly veteran. Awesome. Well, thanks, everybody. Brittney, hopefully that paints a picture. Most of the other members that aren't here for the Norwalk River Watershed Initiative are the municipalities in the watershed. They all have staff that represent each of those towns. So those are some of the other members and some members of some of the land use commissions, et cetera, in those communities. You should be able to just share your screen without any problem, and we can just kind of dive into your slides. I would suggest that we wait until the end to ask any questions that come up.
Okay.
I see your screen. Thank you.
Perfect. All right, great. And then just to give an introduction for myself, Brittney Izbicki with USGS. I'm a supervisory hydrotech out of the Connecticut office, and I manage the project that I will be presenting on, the embayment monitoring that we're doing in Connecticut. So before I get started diving into the monitoring work that we're doing in the Norwalk Embayment, I wanted to talk about the Norwalk Watershed data collection, because USGS does have a long-standing work in the Norwalk Watershed since the early 1960s. And just focusing on some upper sites here, this is one of our stream gauging sites. We've been collecting stage and discharge since 1962. This is at the Norwalk River at South Wilton. And then just below that, we have the Norwalk River at Winnipock. That's pictured right here. This is a long-term discrete water quality station since 1980. It became part of a national water quality assessment in USGS in the early 1990s. And we do a bunch of intensive sampling at this site once a month, and then we actually ramp it up to 3 times a month during the summer. We sample for nutrients, metals, herbicides, pesticides, bacteria indicators, major ions, and then we have collected biological community assessment in the past as well. So starting in May of 2021, we have actually moved down into the Norwalk Embayment as part of a larger study, and that's what I'm going to focus on for this presentation. So we have 3 sites located in the Norwalk Embayment. The upper site is the Norwalk River. We call that at Ferry Point. That's near the Maritime Rowing Club. We have the Norwalk River at the Maritime Aquarium. And then our most lower site in the embayment is the Norwalk River at Cove Marina. And so just to discuss the purpose of the study, this all started with the intention of looking for Connecticut deep. who is looking to develop a series of systematic monitoring and modeling efforts for 8 priority embayments that are pictured here. This is all part of a comprehensive approach to managing the impacts to the Long Island Sound and its coastal embayments. And so USGS is collecting 4 of the 8 identified embayments for 2 full years. We began the Mystic River and the Norwalk River in May of 2021, and that will go through April of 2023. The Sasko Brook, which we are calling the Southport Harbor, and the Saugatuck River, that began in May of 2022 this year, and then that will continue through April of 2024. So this study is to support the development of nutrient models for each embayment, and it's going to build off of our long-term ambient water quality monitoring network that is currently operated by USGS and Connecticut DEEP. And so in this map right here, we do have identified non-tidal sites that we are using to collect estimates of nutrient loading. So we're collecting the estimates of this nutrient loading within these upstream non-tidal watersheds that we all have stream gauging. So we're allowed to collect discharge as well. And that's going to be used along with the nutrient model for each embayment. And we're trying to look at this approach for a statewide watershed model of looking at the nutrient data. So we're able to see the nutrients that are coming into the embayments right above the tidal zone. And then this study is going to allow us to really look at how the nutrient cycling is occurring in the embayments themselves. So just looking at the bigger picture of the Norwalk Embayment Monitoring, like I said, we are projected to end this, unfortunately, next April. It has been a really great monitoring effort. We've collected a lot of great data that I will show, but we have top and bottom continuous water quality parameters. I will go into much more detail about all of this, the monitoring and sampling efforts that we're doing. Those are located in our Norwalk Aquarium in our upper and our Norwalk Cove Marina. Ferry Point, we do collect some continuous water temp SC data, as well as some dissolved oxygen during the summer. And then at all 3 locations, we collect discrete water quality data as well. This picture right here is our setup of our most lower one, the Norwalk Cove Marina right here. This is our gauging station with our data logger. These are real-time sites. They're available on the web. And then right here is our velocity uplooker that we are collecting in conjunction with our water quality parameters as well. So now talking about the efforts, our data collection efforts. All of our water quality samples at those 3 locations that I identified are collected at near surface and near bottom conditions, about a foot below the water and a foot and a half above the bottom. We're collecting those locations near surface and near bottom using a point sampler. These samples are collected primarily by boat and at various tidal cycles. We do have integrated depth profiles that we collect in conjunction with these. And so we started bi-monthly sampling from May to October 21. We did an intense sampling in the very beginning, the first 6 months of the first year. And then we've dialed it back from monthly sampling from November 21 to April 23. This table right here has a list of all the parameters that we're analyzing. So we do have various forms of nutrient data that we're collecting, as well as alkalinity, silica. We are looking at dissolved organic carbon, total suspended solids. We are collecting some chlorophyll data, and then we really are interested in the biological oxygen demand in the water too. So the discrete data will provide information on the cycling of nutrients that drive primary production in the system, as well as how the chlorophyll and the algae respond throughout the embayment, throughout the seasons and the different tidal cycles. So we're looking to collect representative water quality data under a range of seasonal conditions to characterize the water quality spatially and vertically in each embayment. The continuous water quality data collection, these are run year round. And so we have top and bottom monitors to assess stratification. The data is collected in 6-minute intervals. And these are the parameters that we use to collect the data. Specific conductance allows us to compute salinity. And then we also compute the dissolved oxygen percent saturation too. The rest of these are direct measurements that we're collecting from the instruments. And right here, I do have some explanations of each of the 3 locations. As I said, we were collecting water temperature and specific conductance at Ferry Point, and we did do some additional monitoring at top and bottom to include dissolved oxygen as well during the summer of 2022. The Norwalk River and at the Maritime Aquarium and the Cove Marina, that's real-time data that we have available with top and bottom monitors that collect all of the parameters that I have described here in this table. And so this continuous data will allow us to monitor the diurnal and tidal patterns of physical and biological patterns in the water bodies and how they change seasonally. We're really able to look at and examine the magnitude, duration, and extent of hypoxia that is being measured. And then we're collecting these water quality parameters, this continuous data with high temporal resolution, that 6-minute data, to provide time series data that's needed for the water quality model, the calibration, and the evaluation. So this location right here is the Maritime Aquarium, and then this is the Cove Marina right here. So in addition to all of the water quality data we're collecting, we're also collecting estuary elevation and velocity data. Those are being collected at the Maritime Aquarium and Cove Marina. And the velocity data that's being collected, this will provide the tidal volume each day and information on how much mixing is occurring throughout the estuary. The stage data that we're collecting at which we're calling estuary elevation data, that's going to infer what's going on with the velocity. And so we're collecting these physical water elevation and velocity data at multiple locations in each embayment to help us understand the physical mixing and variability at different spatial scales. And so now that I've talked a little bit about the data collection efforts, the scope of work, I did want to show some of the data that we have come across, especially the profiles last summer that we collected. So I have July, August, and September graphed. The top is specific conductance versus depth, and the bottom is dissolved oxygen versus depth. Ferry Point, the most upper part is in blue, the aquarium is in orange, and then Cove Marina is in gray. And so we were really looking at changes in the salinity structure and how it relates to DO from these vertical profiles, the relationship between the freshwater and the surface water, and how it's affecting physical and biological data. We were seeing stratification in the upper Ferry Point site and the aquarium as well. And so right here, we can see that at Ferry Point, about a foot below the surface, we were collecting brackish conditions in the water. And then as we went down in depth, we did see that change into the salt water. And the response in DO was very interesting as well. We could see that those DO values really did drop, especially at Ferry Point, to below 2 milligrams per liter as we moved down to about a foot depth down the water column. And so we were able to see that in both July and August. And the low DO values during the summer at Ferry Point, they did go as below as 1 milligram per liter, about 14% DO percent saturation, and as high as 21 milligrams per liter in September. This high one right here that we saw was an interesting outlier, and I do have some discrete data to kind of compare with this, which was really cool to look at as well. The Cove Marina, we didn't see stratification. It's a well-mixed environment there. But what was interesting is that we did see dissolved oxygen values that were pretty close to 5 milligrams per liter towards the end of September. And so this point right here at Ferry Point, this was showing some, high dissolved oxygen values right in that first upper layer. Right here, I have our discrete data collected. This is our dissolved oxygen in milligrams per liter that we captured. That was that point that I just pointed out in the previous slide. So we have dissolved oxygen on the y-axis in both graphs. And then in the left graph, we have phosphorus on the x-axis, and then chlorophyll on the x-axis to the right as well. And so these low DO values are associated with higher phosphorus values. We were seeing that. And this outlier right here, that was that top sample at Ferry Point. So we were able to capture a high dissolved oxygen value. And then we did show that there was a bloom in the water too. So this was actually primary productivity that we were able to capture during that one day when we collected that discrete sample. Now, when we showed the dissolved oxygen values to Connecticut Deep at Ferry Point, they were very interested and wanted to do some additional monitoring. And so, like I said, we did collect water temp, specific conductance, and dissolved oxygen at near surface and near bottom at Ferry Point for the summer, from May to October of this year. And it was the dissolved oxygen, the data that we captured was very, very interesting. Some of the most extreme values that I've seen. So this summer we did experience sustained high temperatures and drought conditions that led to below normal stream flows. And we did monitor extreme fluctuations in dissolved oxygen in the upper Norwalk. At Ferry Point right here, we have the aquarium, and then the Cove Marina is down here. And so the sensors did capture high DO levels at night, during the day, in both the top and bottom conditions, and then near zero DO levels at night. So I have the top DO data that's graphed here. So these are the near surface conditions that I'm capturing in this slide. So there were multiple dates in July at Ferry Point that we did measure dissolved oxygen values more than 20 milligrams per liter during the day, and then dropped to near zero at night. So not only these near zero values were alarming, but it was the extreme the extreme change in dissolved oxygen in just a matter of 24 hours. That was actually really alarming too, because that puts a lot of stress on the environment as well. So we saw these extreme values at Ferry Point. We were able to compare these values to the aquarium, the middle site in Norwalk too. They didn't have as extreme values exceeding 20, but we did see sometimes the values would go up to about 14 milligrams per liter during the day, and then little to no oxygen at night. So the most lower site at Cove Marina didn't show extreme fluctuations or near zero values, but we did record values less than 5 milligrams per liter at this site. So we did see supersaturated conditions in the upper Norwalk caused by primary productivity, and then those extreme drops to near zero due to respiration during the summer. And then this slide right here is just comparing the top and bottom DO values for the Norwalk River at Ferry Point on the left, and then the Norwalk River at the aquarium on the right. So just comparing top and bottom, showing that what we were seeing at near surface, we might have seen more fluctuations in DO, but we were seeing that at the bottom as well. So that top and bottom conditions, we were seeing these extreme fluctuations in dissolved oxygen. And so our goal is to kind of see, like, at what point were these monitors monitored in the tidal cycle, look at the diurnal, the tidal cycles, and at what point, at what depths were each of the top and the bottom moving forward, to kind of look at this a little bit deeper. And then just to show a comparison too, because we do have 3 embayments adjacent to each other. So when we're seeing, extreme conditions in one, we immediately look to see what are we seeing in these other embayments. And so just showing the lower embayments, these are our buoy sites that we have at the lower Saugatuck and then the lower Southport. These are, right at the mouth of the coastal rivers, if not, almost out into the ocean. And during this time, July of this summer, we were seeing dissolved oxygen values that were less than 5 milligrams per liter in the lower parts of these embayments too. So not only that, but as we kind of moved a little more east, we have monitoring data at the Connecticut River as well. And then the Mystic River, we were seeing that trend of the dissolved oxygen values were dropping below that 5 milligram per liter during the summer, which we think, is really driven by the high temperatures and the drought conditions. So we have a comparison along the coast of Connecticut to really show how the dissolved oxygen was affected this summer. And then this slide is just some additional links that can be provided. We have the Regional Stream Quality Assessment. This is a website. The Northeast Stream Quality Assessment. This is all really related to that sampling that I talked about at the Norwalk River at Winnipock, a lot of the water quality doing as part of a national program. And then this is the Norwalk Watershed Plan Final. This was provided by Connecticut Deep. And then this link right here, I can provide, to the group over email as well. This is the Embayments project page that if you were to you click on it, it will bring you to sort of the scope of work, a summary, but then also it provides links to the real-time data. So it's a quick, easy way for people to see that real-time continuous water quality data. And that is the end of my presentation. I'm more than happy to answer any questions.
Great. Thank you, Brittney. A lot of information in that talk and a lot of data or data, I guess, depending how you want to say it. Does anybody in the group have any questions about anything that Brittney presented?
Chris?
Yeah, go ahead, Kathleen.
Kathleen, Helen, really just a comment. Thank you, Brittney. That was really excellent presentation and quite shocking at the same time. My question as you were doing your presentation, you answered. I was, thinking about the summer that we had and the drought conditions and wondering whether or not your results would be or could be affected by a drought in particular. So you have answered that, and I'm curious to know, were you surprised as you moved to the other areas that you're testing closer to the, what we'll call the mouth of the, where it opens up further to the, I guess that would be east in Connecticut. Were you surprised that the dissolved numbers were virtually the same or running around the same as what you found closer into the New York section?
It was definitely eye-opening to really see those dissolved oxygen levels and also the water temperature too. We had some water temperature values that were pretty close to 30 degrees Celsius, which I wasn't anticipating at the mouths of these embayments as we move out into the ocean. If we are moving, if we're looking at the upper locations, I guess like I wasn't so surprised to see that, but just thinking that we're basically in the ocean environment and to see those levels, it was eye-opening for sure, absolutely. And so early on in the summer too, we were seeing that in July, which was very alarming.
Right. And just another question that occurred to me, as part of your study here, were there any reported fish die-offs or anything that you stumbled upon as a result of some of the conditions you were finding?
Right. So last summer, the summer of 21, there was a lot of fish kills. And I remember having conversations with Joe Schneerlin from the Mayor Water Quality Committee, and we did not see, I checked with some of the crews this summer, and we did not see any or a lot of fish kills this summer, which was really interesting, especially with the dissolved oxygen levels.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
John, did you have a question? Yeah.
I just wanted to follow up on that.
Yep.
So one of the things that Brittney and I were specifically looking for this year were fish kills, because we did see some in 21. And one of the things that is kind of alarming is that those really high ranges and fluctuation in the DO may have not really allowed a lot of fish to come into the river, because some of those DO values, 21, over 20 milligrams per liter, those are DO concentrations of about 400% saturation. And at that range, the oxygen becomes toxic to the fish because the oxygen can't stay in the solution. It wants to form bubbles and escape to the atmosphere. And that actually can get on the fish's gills and cause them to not be able to respire. So we think that those really high DO ranges during the day may have kept some of the fish out as well. And as far as some of the stuff that we see in the eastern part of the embayments in Long Island Sound, so some of the embayments there have almost permanent stratification. So the salt wedge estuaries come in, and the bottom is kind of sealed off from the top, and the bottom numbers go hypoxic or anoxic when the summer water temperatures warm up, and there's a big stratification barrier between the near surface and the near bottom. But what we saw in the Norwalk is that those near zero values in the surface water, those were pretty alarming. We didn't see those near zeros in the surface in the other embayments. So the range of DO in the Norwalk was pretty shocking this year.
Chris, I have a follow-up question to that. Thank you, John. That's helpful and interesting and more better explanation for some of the things that you were seeing for sure, or an additional explanation, I guess I should say. Let's see, something else occurred to me as you were speaking. Oh, it's going to come back to me, so I'll let someone else go if they have the question. Sorry.
Are there any other questions for Brittney or John? I mean, I did want to ask about the fish kills, but that's been covered a little bit. But I think it's interesting that those very high levels and high percent saturations could have been actually protecting the fish from going to an area that had lower DO later in the day when it was dark, right? So there's kind of an interesting effect there, right? I don't know how else to explain it, but it's very interesting to me to see that could be something that's occurring, and there weren't fish kills because they couldn't get into those areas because the DO was so high during the daytime, but then they weren't exposed to those crashes at night.
Yeah. Yep.
It's come back to me. I remember my question. So the zone auction issue, do you primarily contribute it to the warm temperatures and drought, or are there other factors that perhaps are happening within the embayment, north as the water's running down, like more impervious areas or some kind of sediment loads entering the system? Is there anything else that came onto your radar that could explain the results?
John, I will let you answer this because I know you'll answer it better than me.
So in 2021, we had a year that had a few more runoff events, and we've got a lot of data that show that. So during some of the runoff events, there was some sediment transport and brought high turbidity fresh waters into the upper parts of the estuary. Those waters then became kind of brown and heated up fairly quickly. But there was more freshwater mixing. Even though it brings in more nutrients, there is more freshwater mixing. In 2022, with the drought, there wasn't as much mixing. And so what really is driving this is nutrient over-enrichment in the estuary. And so that nutrient over-enrichment, we see the response variable then is primary productivity during the day, and then at night respiration. And so the real cause of these big diurnal DO swings is that nutrient over-enrichment. with the really warm temperatures, we can get a lot of different types of algae blooming. So we didn't do as much algae work as we wanted to. We only sent off one sample for a quick qualitative analysis. And I don't think we've gotten the results back on that yet. We kind of wanted to see what was going on with algae, but it would be interesting to look at both the phytoplankton and the zooplankton populations in that part of the estuary. I think those are really going to fill in some of the information about what's going on.
Awesome. Thank you, John. So it sounds like all we'd have to do is eliminate nutrients from stormwater runoff and we'd fix these issues. That's a small problem.
Yeah. Well, that's the start. There's actually some other, there's nutrients in the sediment, there's nutrients in the river, there's nutrients in the wastewater treatment plant,
Sure.
So as Britt noted too, this part of our study is planning to wind down this spring. And so one of the things that Brittney and I are trying to do is look for additional partners to keep some of our monitoring going, particularly at the aquarium site, and then possibly the Ferry Point site as well.
Harbor Watch would be more than happy to talk to you about partnering and helping continue that for sure, because we're already doing some DO studies just on our own. We're a participant in the Unified Water Study, so we're out there at those sites doing discrete sampling, and then we do our fish study in the harbor as well. So we're out there pretty constantly, and we have some dedicated boat interns who like just do work in the harbor all summer. So giving them some other tasks to do for discrete sampling or upkeeping of continuous recorders would be great.
I'd be interested to see what your fish data showed this year.
Yeah, we actually just released our report, so I'll put a link to it in the chat.
Okay, great.
So John, I was actually going to ask a question about the these stations and keeping them running. I'm assuming beyond partners, there's probably also financial partnerships that you'd be looking for to maintain some of this work.
Yes, we're looking to incorporate some of the work that we're doing at the aquarium site into some communication and outreach work for Long Island Sound Study, and be able to that information in real time available, as well as the stage data there and the turbidity data that we collect there in relation to some of the railroad work that's going on, and just kind of understanding, in real time for the top and bottom monitoring. We really need both the top and the bottom monitored, and we need it recorded 24 hours a day to catch these diurnal cycles, to kind of put the whole process together. So there is a financial requirement to keep these stations running, and unfortunately our slug of funding through the DEP and Long Island Sound Study is shifting. So we're taking the work to a new embayment starting this spring. So we're expecting to decommission those stations, but we think that the data set is extremely valuable. We'd like to keep it going.
Chris, one thing I recommend to Jamie as she's drafting minutes for this meeting, I would encourage her to put a link to the video, because there's multiple other members that normally are on this call that may be interested in engaging in a partnership or some way to encourage it by making it super simple for them, maybe to log on to the video to watch it.
I can do that.
Great.
Yeah, Kathleen, I think it's a great idea. I was actually going to make sure that we include that on our agenda for the January conversation anyway for our meeting then. Dick, did you have your hand up? Oh, can't hear you.
Dick, if you have a question, could you type it in the chat?
Yeah, that's a good suggestion.
At the bottom of the screen, it should say chat, and a little window pops up. Nope.
Can't hear you. So I'll just follow up a little bit on the maintaining the stations. What does that dollar figure look like to keep something moving?
So right now, depending on what we're looking at, so we're about $40,000 a year for one of those stations, and we're hoping to be able to do some outreach and possibly get some grant assistance, maybe through either Long Island Sound Future Funds or something like that, to partner with possibly the Norwalk Maritime Aquarium there, and be able to continue to keep this monitoring data going.
Yeah.
Really nice long-term. It would be a nice long-term data set, particularly if we want to start to look at, is the system improving? Are the ranges in DO, dampening down a little bit? So I think that's kind of one of the areas we're looking for. So right now, if we could get half of that, that would bridge the rest of this year and be able to keep it going until next year. And then from there, we're still looking for additional partner agencies to keep the site going.
Great, thanks for that information. Does anybody have any other questions? I don't think, Dick, you fixed the audio yet.
So maybe what we could do, since Dick's not, we're not able to hear Dick because I know he has a lot to say and he's an incredibly valuable source in this area. And I would love to link these people up either by telephone so that they can speak directly. Mm-hmm. So maybe your contact information could be distributed so that you could have a chat perhaps after this meeting by telephone, the old-fashioned way.
Of course. Yep.
Actually forgot that I have a desk phone back in my office.
Yeah, it doesn't get a lot of use in my office right now either.
But every once in a while I go into the office and I see the red light is on and I have, like 20 messages. I'm like, oh geez, forgot to check my phone.
Yeah, I think that we can at least send an email out connecting folks after this. I think that Brittney's email address is included on the message for this meeting, but we can add John's contact information if it's not in there already.
I'll type it in the chat right now.
Perfect, thank you. Yeah, because I think it is a good conversation to keep moving forward, and definitely share with the members and representatives that aren't on this call right now for our January conversation. Thanks for putting that in the chat.
Yep.
Does anybody have any other questions for Brittney or John? All right, well, I don't hear anything. So I definitely appreciate you both taking the time to share the work that you've been doing and the data that you've collected. And we'll see what we can come up with to maybe help you with some partnerships in the future as we have some more conversations about that. I do agree there's a lot of value in that data. It kind of is a good way to tell if things are being improved in the watershed or what the problems are we should be working on in the watershed, which is kind of what this group is about, is really implementing that watershed-based plan. And so if there's projects that address the issues you're seeing in the water quality data that are in that plan, that can be a way that we prioritize some of our efforts.
Yeah, I think that's a great relationship, and plus the additional fact that we have all of monitoring at in the watershed itself, in the freshwater portion of the watershed. We have kind of a linked data set here between both the freshwater and the estuary. It really helps us look at what the upstream loads are coming from the watershed, as well as what the dynamics are out in the estuary.
Right. Yeah, it's nice to see kind of everything from top to bottom.
Yeah. Yep. And it's a long-term data set, and I was actually on one of the original Norwalk River Watershed initiatives back in the early 90s. So I used to drive down for the meetings all the time.
We're mostly doing Zooms now. See what you missed out on?
Yep. You miss out on those really long drives home at like 11 o'clock at night.
Well, you'd be welcome to join us anytime in the future.
I'm transferring it over to Brittney now. She's going to take the charge of the Norwalk here.
Nice. Well, we'll make sure to keep Brittney on our email list as well.
Great.
Sounds great. Thank you very much for the opportunity. It was nice
thank you both.
Thank you. It's excellent presentation. Really, really very interesting. And the data tells a lot. And so oftentimes that's useful information when you're applying for grants or future funding and you're showing a problem and then trying to demonstrate a potential solution to the problem. So it's really good work. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay. All right. Well, we will. I will sign off. I don't know if John's sitting on, but if there's any follow-up questions or any connections, my email is associated with the links to the meeting and stuff. So please reach out, and we'll absolutely keep in touch for sure.
Yeah, that sounds great. Again, thank you
very
both,
much.
and have a good Christmas.
Thank you. You too.
You too. Goodbye.
Thank you.
All right, well, I'm going to stop recording at this point because I don't think we need to record the rest.